Hey everyone, Juan Weezer here, president of Sage Real Estate, and with another podcast. This time we're going to be talking about the balcony inspection law that is closely coming. I mean, we're 6 months away, Cody, from this inspection law that I'll be honest with you, most apartment owners, brokers don't even know that this is a requirement. If you own 3 units or more in California, you are required, if you have balconies, stairs that face the elements, meaning like it's not enclosed within the units, you're going to be required to have an inspection. And so we're going to dive into that today. I'm here with Cody Charnell, one of the brokers here at Sage Real Estate. Cody's been an amazing addition to Sage Real Estate, and we're really, really lucky to have Cody here with us. Cody, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Cody, in the world of apartment ownership, sometimes we don't realize how up to date we need to be on things. And I believe that maybe 15, 20 years ago this wasn't an issue, but now I feel like every month we're coming out with some like urgent announcement of owners need to know this. Talk to us about what you know about the balcony inspection, kind of some of the feedback that you're getting from some of the clients out there.
So basically, the reason that this law came into being is a few years back there was a big balcony collapse up in Berkeley. So there was 14 college kids out on the balcony. Basically, the structural elements had decayed, and nobody knew about it, and caused the balcony to collapse. And unfortunately, like 6 of the students ended up passing away. So I think a lot of the laws that are kind of coming out right now are reactionary and because of things that just happen, you know.
Mhm.
So I think this is just one of those new things that came up that people weren't really paying attention to, but now that there's been a tragedy and it's something that's been in the news, you know, we're having to deal with that as apartment owners.
So the law is SB 326. And again, if so I did a presentation this morning and I mentioned this and someone said, "Hey, I own a duplex." And so people who have a duplex, who have stairs and balconies, they don't have to do the inspection. I checked in with the property manager and more people are asking. Seller owners are not asking me. That tells me owners do not know. But I'm hearing from insurance agents. I'm hearing from property managers, and so I'm going to give you guys just some basic facts. So, 3 units or more, you have to have this inspection. So, a couple things. Some people are making the assumption that if you have an inspection, you're going to have to do work. That's not necessarily true. Everyone is going to have to do the inspection. That's definitely mandatory. But the work part, that's only if the contractor, that's the other important issue. The contractor has to have a A, B, or C license. And so you can imagine, so if you're a contractor, this is going to create a lot of opportunity because there are thousands, thousands of units here in Long Beach alone. This is just Long Beach. I mean, think about Southern California, think of all of California. And I want everyone to know, be very clear that this is all of California. So the first part is you have to have an inspection. If the contractor determines that work needs to be done because maybe something is not reinforced, it wasn't built right, sometimes the wood has either termite, it's got termites. The weather has weakened the structural integrity, and maybe they determine that you're going to need to do some work to it. They're going to give you 120 days to do the work. Part two of that, the contractor who does the inspection is not allowed to do the work. So, some little technical stuff to kind of note. I would say I'm afraid that most of the people don't know about this, Cody, and that's kind of why we're doing this today is to let people know. Um, One other part, some of the quotes that I'm hearing from some of the folks that have been proactively done this before it gets too crazy. I mean, we're 6 months away from this being due, and most people not knowing. And so, some of the quotes that I've seen, most of them have been at $1,500, Cody. One of them today that I heard from my property manager contact said $800. And the only reason I think he was able to do $800 was for the pure fact that he's a property manager and he's probably going to be able to bring in a lot more jobs to that company. So they gave favorable ratings. But for anyone who owns, say, a 4 unit, maybe a 6 unit, they may not get that favorable rating.
Got it. Yeah, it's not cheap to inspect, you know. And what people don't realize is, you know, even in a lot of cases, the wooden elements that are going to need to be inspected are not visible to the eye. So in these inspections, if you have a deck that um, tenants walk across to get to units and it's stuccoed kind of all around, the contractors are going to have to cut that stucco open so that they can inspect the wooden elements. So it's not just as simple as going out and looking. Sometimes they do have to do some invasive stuff. So it does sort of make sense that there's a little bit higher price tag than you may have expected initially.
One of the things that I suggest, so I I have a 4 unit building, and there, Cody, believe it or not, there's three separate staircases to the second floor, three of them. So now, like, there's just more staircases than I than we probably wish we had, right? And so I met a contractor out there today for one of the reasons is that it's been a little shaky to me. And so we looked at it, and he says, "Hey, this needs to be completely rebuilt." And he was recommending you should build it out of metal now, like no longer use wood. He said wood would be cheaper, but metal would last much longer. And I think what's going to happen, what do you think is going to happen, Cody? Well, I think most people are probably not going to get the inspection. And so there's going to be some notices that go out. I don't know how quick or proactive the state's going to be or the city's going to be about penalizing those who don't get the inspections done. Is this, what do you think this does to someone who's already thinking that they're not happy with owning rental properties in California, Cody?
Oh man, it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Property owners have dealt with so much over the last few years with different notices that have to go out, different ways they have to compensate tenants, and different laws they have to, now abide by. So it gets tough for people. At some point, some people are going to tap out and potentially exit the market over stuff like this. If somebody does this inspection for $1,500 and then they find out there's $20,000 worth of work that needs to be done, that could be detrimental to a lot of people. Actually, I have a question about how this all works and your understanding of this.
Mhm.
So, if somebody does, or if somebody goes through the process of getting their exterior wooden elements, inspected, what do they do with that physical report? Do they just keep that, or do they have to report it to some, governing body to prove that they've done this, or how does that piece work?
That's a good question, Cody, and I am not going to pretend like I know the answer to that yet. But I was thinking the same thing. Who's the auditor? Who do we? This is kind of like a report card. Who do we turn this into, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not 100% sure. I mean, we'll certainly get some more information on this. We do plan on having a contractor come in and kind of tell us exactly what they're going to be looking for. Um, we this week I wrote up an offer for one of our clients, and she, she wanted to discount the price by $100,000 because she said I'm going to have to fix the balconies and the stairs. And I had a reminder, Cody. I said, "Hey, just because you have to have an inspection doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be work." And this is before she walks the property. But this is kind of like this is going to be one of those things where the buyer's going to be worried about it. And when I told the seller, "Hey, how about the balcony inspection?" And this is like a 12-unit building, Cody. The seller said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Meaning that he did not know that this was going to be a requirement. I don't blame him. I think the majority of the people that we service aren't going to know about this, and I think it's going to catch a lot of people. They're going to be blindsided by it.
Yeah, I can see the same thing happening.
Cody, let's talk about what you're experiencing right now in the market. I know that you sell a lot of properties. You help a lot of people into their first investment. You help people trade up, whether they have a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, sell and then get larger units. Why don't you give us kind of an update on what you're seeing? So now we're at the end of May, so May 31st, 2024. What do you make of the first 5 months, and how do you see things going the rest of the year?
Yeah, it's been surprisingly busy for me.
Mhm.
I haven't seen much of a change in inventory, and as we've talked about in the past, maybe you haven't talked about it on the podcast, but I know we've talked about this. There's sort of two segments of the market that are acting a bit differently. So you have your 2 to 4 unit properties with residential financing. A lot of those owners are locked into really low interest rate loans that are fixed for 30 years. And then you have the 5 unit and up properties. And those loans typically are only fixed for 3, 5, sometimes 7 or 10 years. And a lot of people who purchased or refinanced buildings a few years back, their loans are starting to adjust and they're jumping from, low threes to high sixes. So their mortgage rate is doubling in a lot of cases. So what I'm seeing in the 5 unit and up space is prices are very slowly continuing to come down. So, if you're familiar with gross rent multiplier, a couple years ago, 5 and up buildings were trading at like 13 times gross, right?
Okay. And
So
so
that's
and so let me just explain that. So if
yeah,
someone's hearing this, the gross rent multiplier is taking the annual rent of a property, so all the income. We're completely ignoring expenses in this specific calculation, and we're multiplying it times a multiplier. So in this case, when Cody says 13, we're taking the gross income of a property, multiplying it times 13, and that's going to spit out a value. And so what Cody was saying is that in the past, if someone just called them out of the blue and said, "This is how much money I'm making on my property," Cody, being so knowledgeable in the Long Beach market, he's going to say, "Hey, kind of behind the napkin calculation, let's multiply it times 13." He's going to come up with a value. So that was a couple years ago. You said, Cody, the
right,
13.
right.
What are you seeing now?
So now I'm seeing 11s pretty consistently, 11 times gross.
Okay.
So we've basically gone from 13 down to 11. So if your building is making $100,000 a year, a few years ago, you would have multiplied that by 13 and you would come up with like a rough idea of value of 1.3.
Yeah.
Now I'm seeing 11 pretty consistently. So if your building's making 100 grand, you multiply that by 11, your value is roughly 1.1. So prices have come down pretty
I mean,
considerably.
that's close to $200,000
Yeah.
that someone could
It,
have potentially paper loss, we'll call it. They
right,
haven't technically lost until they sell it.
right, right.
Yes, and so, but even from a percentage, that's a huge percentage of loss in value.
It is, yeah. It's surprising. I think prices have come down enough now to where there's buyers who are interested again, and at 11 times gross, it seems like buildings are starting to sell quicker than they were previously. So I think we're maybe settling on pricing. It is dependent a lot on what happens with interest rates moving forward. So if interest rates come down, I'm sure GRMs are going to, bump up a bit. If they do the opposite and interest rates continue to go up, we'll probably see prices continue to come down. But the 5 unit and up space has been more sensitive to the rate swings.
Okay.
The 2 to 4 unit properties, there's not as much urgency there. Like those owners, because they have 30-year fixed financing, they're not really forced to sell in a lot of cases. So you see more owners choosing to just hold on to properties if they're not getting their number. And you also see gross rent multipliers have come down a little bit on 4 unit buildings, but it hasn't been nearly as dramatic as the 5 and up.
When you call a client right now and you're looking at, say, an 8-unit building and you're like, "Hey, I found a building, it's off market and it's at 11 times gross." How's that being received? Like, does the investor like to hear that? Or is 11 not good enough?
It can be good enough in a lot of cases.
Okay.
Some questions that they'll usually ask is there upside? Can I buy this, raise rents, and get it to operate better than 11? And then a
Yeah.
lot of times you can.
Yeah.
And the other big question that people ask is how much am I going to have to put down? Because the commercial loans that you use to buy 5 unit and up properties, there's a couple limiting factors. One of them, and probably the most limiting factor, is your debt service coverage ratio.
Mhm.
So basically, it's the bank is going to require you to put enough money down to make the property cash flow right out of the gate. And with interest rates where they are, it's taking pretty sizable down payments to make that work. Like 40% down is not uncommon. So
Cody, I'm seeing 50, 60,
yeah,
70% in some cases.
yeah, I'm as well.
We sold these two large units in Arcadia, totaling 30 doors together combined. They were side by side. And the person who bought it, in order to get to the debt coverage ratio, had to put 70% down. I mean, that's literally almost like a cash purchase at that moment, in terms of
Right.
not being able to borrow. One thing that I wanted to ask you, Cody, in the beginning of the year, we thought we had like this perfect scenario of if you owned, say, a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, you could sell at the top and you can maximize that investment. And then we were telling people, hey, sell at the top. There's a great market. There's a good time to sell right now if you own four or less. And then we'll help you trade into, say, five, six, seven, 8 units, double the amount of doors. And when you said earlier that they're more sensitive to the interest rate, that there's more opportunity. So what we were pitching, and I thought we were right, and I just kind of want to get your insights is, hey, sell like you have this perfect storm. You get to sell at the top with the smaller doors and buy at the bottom or lowered, lowered with more doors. I loved that possibility. Is that really happening, Cody? Or what do you think got in the way of that?
It is happening. So I actually have a couple of clients right now. They're selling two 4-unit buildings and they plan to exchange into one 5-unit and up building. So they did recognize that discrepancy in pricing between the 2 to 4 and the 5 and up properties. So they're taking advantage of that. Um, I think one thing that may get in the way of doing that sort of exchange for people is, they're losing out on, or they're losing their interest rate. They're giving up their interest rate that they have, which is probably irreplaceable, right? And they're trading into a 5-unit and up building that's still going to require a large amount of money down. So they may not be able to increase their leverage like a lot of people want to do when they're
Mm.
trading up. Um, and the cash flow might be a little bit worse because they're trading into a higher interest rate. But I think people still are recognizing the value there, right? So when interest rates do eventually come down, I think we will see prices adjust for the 5 and up buildings.
I have a 3 unit and a 4 unit, and right now I'm actively looking at my options of getting those sold. And Cody, I have really good interest rates, but I just believe this is the right time to get the very best deal with the larger doors. Like this would be the opportune time to trade up.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think you're wrong.
Let me talk about something else. You currently have two fourplexes in Long Beach listed. I have two listed in Long Beach, and there's been a major slowdown, in my opinion, with the fourplex market. I mean, we're not getting the amount of calls that we were once getting, and I wanted to give our clients an update yesterday, and I just want, we were 24 days on the market. We've gotten two offers, but they've been less than asking. Clients not doesn't necessarily want to sell it for less than our asking price.
Mhm.
And I had to remind them that, hey, currently we're at the end of May. So this is a full 5 months of 2024. There's been 14 fourplex sales all year. 14.
That's crazy low.
That is the lowest that I've seen since we've been following this. So if we go back 10 years, that's the lowest that I've seen. So just to give someone perspective, in a normal average year in Long Beach, there's about 100 fourplex sales. 100. Folks, we've only sold 14. Like we're not going to be anywhere near that. That means if this keeps up, we're probably going to be around 30.
Wow.
That would be like a 70% sales drop in the fourplexes. So although we're telling people, hey, this is a good time to sell, pricing matters, and you have to price appropriately. And a lot of things come into consideration. I mean, condition could be one of them. Having delivering vacant units is one of them. Having low rents is going to hurt you. And so, what do you tell what do you tell sellers right now when it comes to positioning your property to sell, Cody? Like, what's the message?
Um, the main message is pricing right. That's going to be the biggest determining factor of whether your building sells or not. And then beyond that, like you were mentioning, there's things that you can do to make your property more attractive to a potential buyer. So delivering a unit vacant helps a ton. Um, it opens up options for owner occupants to come and occupy that unit and use, low money down owner occupied financing. Um, Condition makes a big difference. Curb appeal makes a big difference. So, painting the outside if the building isn't looking good, increasing rents if you can, and really just trying to make the numbers look as good as you can.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good advice. If any sellers are out there in Southern California and they would like to have Cody and I come out and just do just kind of like a brief analysis and just give you guys some guidance, that we would love to have that opportunity. We can help you position your property to sell at the price and terms that are acceptable to you, and we don't have to rush into it. Things, depending on timing, things could change, and I say timing because if we're not in a rush and if we have a little bit of time, there's certain things that we could help you do, and sometimes it takes months to get to that point to be able to get the right things in place. So my buddy called me and his insurance went up by $400. Now this is just for a small building. Obviously, we're getting other people calling us, and they have larger 12, 20 unit buildings, and they're calling us for referrals. Hey, who's insuring out there? What are you seeing out there with some of the folks you work with?
Yeah, insurance is tough, and it's been difficult, with every escrow that we've done. The big insurance carriers can no longer make money in California because there's a state insurance board that doesn't allow them to increase rates at the rate that they need to.
Hmm.
So a lot of these big carriers have left. So, if you have Farmers Insurance, Mercury, there's a few others. Like a lot of these people have policies on buildings in California still, and when those policies are coming up for renewal, they're not renewing them. So people are having to switch, right? So there's a secondary lines. It's called excess and surplus lines that most people are going with now. Those lines are more expensive, and insurance companies are being more picky about your major systems. So they want to see that the roof, the plumbing, the electrical, the heaters have all been updated within the last 25 years. If you have any recalled electric panels, they're requiring you to upgrade those. Within a certain amount of time. It's usually 30 or 60 days of binding that policy for you, and it's not cheap to do that stuff. Like average, I'm seeing is $5,000 to $7,000 to upgrade, like the main electric panel. So if you have
Yeah.
a 4 unit building, you're looking at $20,000 to $28,000 in just costs for that.
So Cody, to kind of bring this full circle, we talked about the balcony inspection, which could lead to balcony work, right?
Mhm.
Insurance has been going up, and insurance might require you to upgrade the panels in order for them to continue insuring it or to secure the new insurance, and then that premium has gone up. It's getting difficult. It's getting more and more difficult to own units out there.
It really is, yeah.
And so, why? Let me play devil's advocate here. Is why would someone continue to want to own in California?
I think, the economics still make sense over the long term. There's always going to be ebbs and flows in a market, and I think, California with the limited amount of land and the huge amount of demand from people to live here,
Mhm.
um, that supply and demand mismatch is going to allow properties to appreciate over time. And if you can get through these tough times, I think you're going to do really well long term. So I always tell people, just make sure you're looking 10 years into the future, not 1 year, 2 years. Because real estate really is a long term investment, and that's where you make your money.
Um, yeah, I've shared this in the past, and my mentor Mark Milan said that real estate, it's not get rich quick, it's get rich guaranteed. But part of that guarantee, Cody, is long term ownership, which we believe in. We've never said this was going to be easy, and you're not going to make it overnight, but in the long run, it's still going to be a terrific investment. And I think both you and I are actively looking at deals for ourselves and together, so so for those people listening, like, people like Cody and I, we're in the business, we're real estate brokers, and we're actively looking and submitting offers ourselves. And so let that be a testament to what we believe is going to, kind of remain. Yes, it's difficult, but we still believe that this is the best vehicle to build wealth. Cody, I want to thank you. I know you got to get going to your next appointment. I do want you to, if people want to get a hold of you, Cody, you have your YouTube channel. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
You can check out my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Cody Charnell, or you can go to the Sage website. My contact info is all there. But yeah, I'd love to talk with you and strategize and help you on your real estate journey.
We're gonna continually have Cody back more and more. I love his input, the way he looks at the properties. He's terrific with analyzing properties, and so for me, I enjoy just asking him questions, and we kind of go back and forth. And so I'm going to try to, as a benefit to our viewers, to our listeners, is kind of bring those conversations that we're having here at the office into the studio, so they could kind of hear how we interact, and just as we both seek to not only build wealth, but just to help each other grow in the world of real estate and everything else. So I appreciate you, Cody, and thanks for being on today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Cool.